Drop it.
2016 is here, and there's a ton of open world games coming this year, and GameRings wants to talk to you about the top 20 new open world games coming in 2016. Number 20, Tokiden 2. The original Tokiden was a different game. It kind of had a few allusions to the style of gameplay that you might expect from Dynasty Warriors, albeit a bit slower, and to be honest, it was a great game that I kind of thought could have been a little better. Tokiden 2 seems very much like it understands this. It's expanded the world, expanded the scope, has taken a little bit of influence from Western RPGs, and if the world remains as rich as the first time around, we have no reason to believe that it won't. Number 19, Hero's Song, a gorgeous 2D roguelike action RPG. Now I do say gorgeous because frankly, pixel art can go one way or the other, and this is the good kind of pixel art. The game represents itself as having very familiar click to move and attack controls like Diablo 3 or Path of Exile, but combat being maybe a little bit more tactic oriented and maybe a little bit slower. One of the other cool things is that it says that you're going to be able to create worlds in order for yourself to play in. I like that. Gives you replayability, and it's also cool to see 2D open world games just happen, period. Number 18, Conan Exiles. Conan Exiles is being labeled as an open world survival game. It's obviously licensed from the Conan the Barbarian franchise. The developer Funcom says there's literally no better environment for an open world survival style game, and I frankly have to agree with them a bit. An interesting thing that I've seen them say about this is that it's going to support both private and public servers, so technically you could run a server for this? That's not normal for today's game. It's also going to have a single player mode, and it sounds really interesting. Number 17, Boundless. So this is something that's really cool about Boundless. It is a PS4 and PC cross-platform game, and every single person is playing on the same world. Now this has been technically possible for a long time, but for some reason, it's just now that you're starting to see games crop up like this. If one of my friends on PC is playing the game and I have it on PS4, I still want to be able to play with them, and in Boundless I can. On top of that, the art style is really cool. Clearly has some influence from Minecraft. Basically, Boundless is a game where you can travel through different worlds using portals. The mechanics support you kind of becoming a space pirate or somewhat of a business person. Not necessarily savory, but it seems like a really cool concept. Number 16, Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves is this really interesting looking game from Rare, the creators of Donkey Kong Country, that essentially has you playing as pirates in a sea of user created content, literally a sea of it. It's part of a developing trend of games that is relying heavily on the player to create their own narrative, and I'm really interested to see where it goes. Number 15, Homefront: The Revolution. What looks like a much more consistent yet more open and wide version of Homefront is coming out that pits you against the greater Korean Republic. The game essentially takes place 4 years after the original occupation, as you started a resistance movement against the army of the Koreans. One of the reasons that Homefront didn't work as good as it could have is because it wasn't open world. Frankly, the concept lends itself to open world, period. And I've seen the developers talk about how they're trying to bring the stuff that worked from Homefront into a larger environment, attempting to make a more consistent but wide-reaching experience that Homefront kind of just wasn't. Number 14, Dying Light: The Following. This game has the distinction of having a before you buy video made by our own Jake Baldino, and I would suggest giving that a watch because he did a great job. I personally haven't got a chance to play this, but I like Dying Light quite a bit, and from the sounds of it, it is something that I personally would enjoy. The Following adds a different feel to the game, as instead of being in a crowded city, you're in the rural countryside, and it's literally twice the size of the map of the original game. Definitely worth a look if you enjoyed Dying Light or just zombie games. Number 13, Kingdom Come: Deliverance. Set in 15th century Bohemia, Kingdom Come: Deliverance is a classless role-playing game focused on being historically accurate and realistic. Now there's not a whole lot of games that do that at this point. It was quite a while where that was a sort of popular genre to do, but it's been a while, and frankly it's really nice to see a quality looking game attempting historical accuracy.
Number 12, Scalebound. Now I can sell you on this game in 6 words. Open world game from Platinum Games. Now if that doesn't mean anything to you, Platinum has done such a great job with games in the past like Bayonetta and Vanquish. Scalebound is being directed by Hideki Kamiya, and frankly that's enough to be excited about on its own. If not, it takes place in a fantasy world with dragons, although does not appear to be medieval by any means, being there is artificial intelligence in this world. It's actually what controls the dragons, and is powered on the Unreal Engine 4. Number 11, Dark Souls 3. Okay, we all know Dark Souls is like the premier, really difficult action RPG RPG game. Some of the limitations that they ended up creating for Bloodborne have influenced Dark Souls 3, although it seems like they've influenced it in a way where they don't want those limitations. If you're a fan of the series, or of just difficult action RPGs in general, I have a feeling this is going to live up to the Souls series as well as Bloodborne. I'm excited. Number 10, Yakuza 6. Now, as we know, Yakuza is not new to open world. It's been open world since the beginning. But the interesting thing about it is it's always kind of been, if you think of Grand Theft Auto plus an RPG, and I like that. The series actually started off a little bit rough, but over the years it's refined itself quite a bit. And I don't know if you've looked at any of the videos of Yakuza 6, but it looks like it's got a pretty advanced graphics engine. Also, Yakuza plays great. It's a great series. They've never completely nailed it, but I've got good feelings about this one. Number 9, Crackdown 3 is coming, and buildings are coming down. I love to talk about Crackdown 3 because I love destructible environments. And Crackdown 3 is going to even go ahead and do something called cloud computing, which allows supposedly 20 times as much power as the Xbox actually has in its core machine, which sounds great because from what I've seen, there's going to be skyscrapers and stuff like that coming down in this game in multiplayer, and I love the sound of this. It looks so cool. I don't just have hopes that this is going to be incredibly fun, I also hope it's going to set some trends and people start getting back into the idea of destructible environments. Number 8, No Man's Sky. You had to have heard about this by now, but if you haven't, No Man's Sky isn't just an open world game, it's basically an open universe game. There's tons and tons of procedurally generated worlds for you to explore and perform a lot of different activities on. You're going to spawn on your own individual planet, and get this, you have over 18 quintillion planets that you can explore from there. And the planets themselves are the size of planets. So let's say there was a crap ton of people on one planet. It's still a big place. This game has been delayed a few times, and what's weird about it is the delays seem to create more hype rather than piss people off, because it's so ambitious. Number 7, The Legend of Zelda Wii U. So Zelda games are all kind of open world games, but this is more Western style, but at the same time it looks to retain a lot of what we love about Zelda at this point. We've seen Hyrule Field, and it looks so much nicer than any time we've ever seen Hyrule Field. And not just because it's high def or has a lot more polygons, just the color palette, it looks amazing. They've been talking a lot about rethinking the conventions of Zelda, and I would guess that we're probably going to see objective-based gameplay that gradually makes certain areas of the world more accessible, not necessarily by artificial boundaries, but probably by difficulty. Number 6, Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Now, I don't know if you played the original Mirror's Edge, it's not an open world game. It's very linear, it's kind of even a little arcadey, but it was what introduced the really great parkour mechanics into first-person games. Catalyst is a reboot, they're going open world, they're going earlier in the timeline and kind of starting over, non-canonical or not, but I do know that the world and the character I really personally enjoy a lot, and having the ability to do a lot more with those elements, I consider a big jump. I really hope this game is good, and I hope it does great, because frankly, I'd love a lot more Mirror's Edge in my life. Number 5, Mafia 3. Another series that has a lot of great ideas that hasn't necessarily pulled them all together is Mafia. And once again, it seems like this is the game where they're finally gonna do it. Now, there's been a lot less entries to Mafia than there has been to Yakuza, but still, Mafia 3 looks like they've kind of pulled all of the concepts that they've had from 1 and 2 into one much more cohesive package. Stuff I've seen of it just makes it look like it's on the level of a Grand Theft Auto. But as we know, the Mafia games have a somewhat unique perspective on that type of game. There's also what seems to be a location-based, maybe turf style system that you can overrun places and then appoint a lieutenant of yours to run the area. Number 4, Far Cry Primal is a very cool looking game that takes the mechanics of Far Cry and drops them into prehistoric times. Obviously, that means you're not going to have guns, you're going to have bows and arrows and other primitive weapons, and you're not going to be fighting other people, but rather nature itself. In some ways, it's probably going to scream Turok Dinosaur Hunter without all the weirdness, but with a different kind of weirdness, because Far Cry can have a weird sense of humor, let's face it. I think this is a really bold move, and Ubisoft should be commended for at least taking it. Now, if it turns out to be as good as it is bold, it's probably going to be a no-brainer. Number 3, Horizon Zero Dawn. Oh my god, this game looks so cool. It looks kind of like a prehistoric game, except for the dinosaurs and wildlife happen to be machines. They're robots. The game is set 1,000 years from now, and human civilization has been abandoned. And Guerrilla Games, the developer, says it's somewhere between Assassin's Creed and Skyrim, and holy shit are those two cool things to put your game in between. Guerrilla Games does a great job with the Killzone games, and this concept is freaking dynamite in my opinion. I can't wait. Number 2, Final Fantasy 15. Final Fantasy 15 has been in development for a very long time. In the last year, for whatever reason, it seems like it's really started to shine. The first demo that came out and the second demo that came out both show such a huge amount of growth just in between those. The battle system plays so well in the second demo. I'm excited. If they're able to put together a story that actually is easy to get emotionally invested in, I don't see how this game could be bad. And I do have to say that while acknowledging that Square Enix doesn't have a great track record with Final Fantasy games, I'm extremely optimistic though. And finally, number 1, The Division, another game that has been in development forever. The thing that I really like about it is that it takes place in mid-crisis instead of just being a post-apocalyptic world. We've seen a lot of post-apocalyptic worlds. However, a mid-crisis setting gives us the opportunity to say, this is our current world as society breaks down. Basically, the plot of the game is a smallpox pandemic starts on Black Friday. Somebody put the virus on money. People spent money on Black Friday. Suddenly, Black Friday became even more dark. Yeah, it's a dark day anyway. There's the trampling deaths and all that, but still, it got worse. Essentially, everything kind of devolves into this war zone, and there are various cells and factions attempting to grab power. Which of these games look like they are the most interesting to you? We'd really love to talk about it in the comments. There's a whole lot of games to choose from. Open world looks alive and well this year. If you wouldn't mind clicking that like button if you enjoyed the video, it helps us a lot and we certainly appreciate it. Also, if you're new around these parts, you might want to subscribe. We upload brand new videos every single day of the week. The best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video, and we will see you again right here on Game.